What the going on this team, Jerry?
Bury him! Bury him!
Jerry, TJ Watt.
He is the best defensive player on the planet.
Go! Yes! Yes! We're going to fire! Steelers fans! Bang! Run it down their throat!
No! That's not a penalty!
Game over! Game over! Don't ask me to do nothing! This is nothing!
He's aggressive.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Steel Here podcast, where I'm your host, Kevin Adams, alongside my partner in crime, Jersey Jerry. And today we are joined by a man, unless you live under a rock, you have definitely read something that he has written about the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is co-owner of Steelers Depot. This is Alex Kozora. Alex, thank you for coming to the show. Enjoy.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. You had Nick Herbig and Roman Wilson and John Rice Plumlee, and now you've brought me on, so it's just right in line with the same Steelers celebrities. Now you've been desperate enough to bring me on, but now I appreciate you guys, and you guys have just been killing it on your podcast.
Appreciate it. You know why it was good to have you on this episode is because we're about to go into week 1. And so it is going to be huge for you to either reel Jerry and I back in before we get too far out there this season and humble us a little bit, or you can build us up in areas where we might be too low. So you're the perfect person for it. Nice and even keel, the complete opposite of what Jerry and I give you. So it's going to be a good episode for sure.
I will do my best.
Alex has always been, I guess you could say like the last 3 years. I've only had Twitter for like 3 years, but I didn't know about Alex until I got Twitter. And then once I found him on Twitter, I'm like, this has got to be the best Steelers account on Twitter. I mean, up to date, gives you everything you need to know, you want to know, how this camp is going, how this player is doing in camp. So, Alex, I just want to say before we get started, probably I would say my favorite Steelers follow.
Man, I appreciate that so much, Jerry. That means a lot. And congrats to you and Coach Dogs in the national championship. I was watching that whole thing through. I mean, it was a great way to close it out. So that gave me a lot of enjoyment during training camp.
Hell yeah.
Before we get into this episode, Jerry Don, you are hot topic speaking of Twitter today. So
yeah,
an episode of Macro Dosing came out where Jerry makes a claim that George Pickens allegedly showed up to a game before kickoff, brought a bag of Twizzlers. Alex, did you see any of this?
I've heard about it. I don't know too much, but I heard a headline about it.
Well, it's not really a claim. It's, from what I know, is a fact. From I'm honestly not going to release no names here, but it's somebody that played for the Steelers last year. So, I mean, hey, the internet can take whatever they want, unless this guy is just like out to get other people. I mean, I've known about that for like 2 years now.
So the story, for those that don't know, the story is that George Pickens showed up before the Steelers played a team a couple of years ago, his rookie season, and he showed up shortly before kickoff carrying a bag of Twizzlers, and the players are texting him, the coaches are texting him, where you at? He shows up and he's like, sorry, I got held up in traffic. He goes out, he still has a great game, scores a touchdown, etc. A lot of people have tried to refute that story on Jerry today, so it's been pretty funny. You got dragged, which got me dragged. I'm catching shit for it, and I'm like, I'm not even the one that said it.
Oh, I work at Barstool. I get dragged all the time, so I'm used to it. The truth is, I don't even like. So anytime we get like Kevin gets news and stuff, he always hits me up as like, oh, people are loving this video you did, or oh, people don't like this video you did, or people don't agree with the George Pickens take. I don't see majority of it. You know what I mean? Because I don't have any notifications on, like that. So I don't read comments, honestly. So I don't really get to see everything, So, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe I don't think I have the game wrong, because I'm pretty sure what I'm thinking of was what he told me. Maybe I have the game wrong. I'm not sure, but hey, either way, I could be getting lied to. I could be. I'm not. I didn't just make up the story just for clicks. I mean, I don't need clicks. Right. So I mean, who knows? I mean, I like George, and I didn't say it 2 years ago because I liked him, and I just like, yeah, fuck it. I mean, it's a funny story. I mean, he's a good player. Who cares?
It is a funny story.
It's here nor there.
So now that we can put that to bed, let's get into Alex. How are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to be on the offensive line this season?
I think health has a lot to do with that, but there was so much riding on the success of this offensive line. I think the one real clear stamp that Omar Khan has made on this team since becoming GM in May of 2022 has been building up the trenches. And that's his philosophy. It's the philosophy of Andy Weidel, the assistant GM that was brought in as, Khan was hired. I mean, Weidel's first draft was in 1998 as a Steelers intern, and they took Alan Faneca in the first round. And then, of course, in Philadelphia, the way they built the offensive line, the defensive line, and you felt that in Pittsburgh, taking Broderick Jones in the first round last year, trading up for him, getting Troy Fautanu this year. First time in history, Pittsburgh's taken tackles in the first round in back-to-back drafts. And so there's been a lot of promise there. But, of course, you've had Fautanu with the MCL sprain. Jones has played, but as you guys have seen, he's playing through something. I know he's downplayed the elbow concern and the brace. I think he's fighting through it. I think he's saying all the right things. He's a professional, but it's clearly impacting him out there. You lose Sayamalu for 3 to 4 weeks. Zach Frazier was probably going to become the starting center at some point sooner than later, but you lose Herbig, et cetera. So there's a real test there of youth and trying to come together and work early in the season. And Pittsburgh's offensive line the last 2 years, they've ended the year well. They've run the ball the back half of the year really well. But they've been such slow starters, and that can't happen. Pittsburgh cannot afford a slow start this year. So on paper, the talent is there. I'm optimistic. I am concerned the health is going to really be an obstacle, especially early in the year, which may have returns or diminishing returns and not allow this line to progress as the year goes on.
Alex, before, I agree the health is definitely a major component into the offensive line, but say we put the health aside, right? When the draft was happening and me and Kev were, watching it and whatnot, and we were so excited, they beefed up the O-line, and we're saying to ourselves, this O-line is going to be dominant. As fans, should, Steelers fans be hey, hold your horses. These guys are still rookies. They're not going to be great. Or, are we right on cue, or should we, fall back a little bit and see what happens? Because listen, I like Broderick Jones. I know we drafted him last year. I like him a lot, but I do feel like he still has a lot to prove to us as Steelers fans. So I'm at the point now where in the beginning when the draft was happening, I was oh man, this O-line is going to be for real. And now I'm at a point where I'm hey, maybe they're just going to be okay. Or maybe they might not be as good. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm still optimistic. The talent is there. And the good news is these injuries are not long-term. Fautanu is essentially healthy right now. He may dress in this Falcons game. I don't think he'll start. We don't know exactly the configuration. But, I mean, he got hurt early. He's back. Sayamalu is not going to be out for the season like it sounded like initially when the first reports came out. Right. And Jones hopefully can work through maybe rest. I don't know exactly what's going on there. So I don't want to paint this cloudy picture. I just think it might take some time. And does Pittsburgh have the time? Can they afford to wait for this line to kind of work together, these young guys to grow and develop? But yeah, from a talent perspective, I mean, this group is better than what it's been since the prime days of Pouncey and DeCastro and Villanueva, Foster, et cetera. And so I'm optimistic about that, about what it can be, as the year goes on, going into next year. But Pittsburgh has a sense of urgency to have results right now.
So we draft 2 left tackles, and that's what Fautanu is. What he, left tackle coming out of Washington. Broderick Jones, who they said was a raw left tackle coming out of Georgia. So for me, no big deal that they slide Broderick Jones to right tackle where he looks like shit. And let's be all the way real about it. He has not looked good in the preseason. He's looked very bad. You blame the elbow. We can blame it on anything we want. He last year has made the claims he's not happy or comfortable rather playing at right tackle. And then they draft another left tackle that they move to right tackle. Do you have any concerns at all that maybe the Steelers don't always have the right approach when it comes to their offensive line, especially because a guy like Dotson leaves and goes back to, LA, where he then goes on to be the highest paid guard, and we had him playing on the wrong side of the line itself?
I do. It's a fair critique. And I've been most concerned with Broderick Jones, not just because they moved him to right tackle, but then he's flip-flop. Is he a left tackle? Is he a right tackle? Khan said he's left tackle eventually. Why can't he be the left tackle right now? Pittsburgh has treated Broderick Jones like a 31-year-old veteran swingman who's done it all. He's a raw guy, came out of Georgia, 14 career starts, had a lot of refining to do to hone his craft, and he's gotten bounced around. I don't think some of the issues he's dealing with now in that Bills game in particular is because of the flip-flopping. I think it's more technical. He did not play that bad at right tackle last year in terms of technique, be playing with his hands, hand placement, striking inside the chest. I mean, those are things he could do last year. He's not doing right now. I do attribute that more to injury than the back and forth. But yeah, I think across the board, Pittsburgh has had this, let talent win out, and the guy is so good he can just line up anywhere. And some guys can do that, but not all guys can, and some guys it takes longer than others. I think even defensively, go back to a guy like Sean Davis, and that's a guy that was a safety, then he was a slot corner. When Golson got hurt, was back to safety, free safety, strong safety. That messed with him. DeMarvin Leal, I think Leal's had his own problems, but he's been D lineman, outside linebacker. What is he? Pittsburgh's not really had a clear-cut plan that can stunt growth and development. So it is a concern. It's less so maybe for something like Fautanu where it is a shift, but it is hopefully a one-time kind of shift. I mean, look at the Chargers with Joe Alt. He was college left tackle. He's going to right tackle where they have Slater at left tackle. I can buy that, but this constant back and forth, this lack of what is our plan with the guy, in particular with Jones, I believe is an issue.
Do you think the issue is Dan Moore's preseason was pretty damn good? Do you think the issue is hey, they just think Dan Moore is a better left tackle than Broderick Jones?
I don't know if it's that. I know they do like Dan Moore, and I think Dan Moore gets too much crap for his play. I mean, he's not Broderick Jones' upside, but Moore has progressed. He's a really hard worker. He's been durable. He's been available, and he appears to be holding off multiple first-round tackles in terms of keeping his starting job. I want to give him credit for that. Pittsburgh has seemingly been very hesitant to play the guy at right tackle, and that I'm not entirely sure what that is. I know Moore has said he's not comfortable there, but he's never going to get comfortable there if you never even play him there, get him some reps there. Right. And he actually played some right tackle his rookie year because the goal was it was going to be a core four and Banner, and maybe Moore would kind of filter in. Banner had the knee, he bowed out, and they kind of had to go from there. So, yeah, I don't know if they think Moore is better long-term or the more talented left tackle. They just feel like he's the most secure guy, and then you don't want to have that projection at right tackle. It's funny, the one guy they won't move to right tackle is Dan Moore. So it is hard to really make sense of. My guess is their thought was, you have Jones a right tackle this year, Moore a free agent after this year, probably leaves, goes somewhere else. You have Jones a left tackle next year, Fautanu at right tackle. That's probably their guesstimate of the situation. And that's probably how things will unfold come 2025.
Oh, that will piss me off. So ultimately, are you saying it in the sense that Dan Moore Jr. plays left tackle, Broderick Jones is his backup most of this season? Once Fautanu is healthy, Fautanu plays right tackle?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. It's still hard to know exactly what's going to happen. The injury to Fautanu kind of threw a wrench into things to slow his development. It is hard to see them benching Broderick Jones unless his play is just that poor. My expectation for week one is Moore at left tackle, Jones at right tackle, and we'll go from there. An injury could clear things up. One of those guys gets hurt, then Fautanu works in, and Jones can play left to right side, and so you just kind of work from there. So I can't say for sure how this thing will go. Again, I think it'll be Moore and Jones to start, and you just take the season and adjust from there. It would be surprising and very disappointing if Jones was on the bench. So I don't want to paint that picture, but I think there's some uncertainty about how this thing's all going to work out.
Yeah, that's the weird part of it to me, Alex, is okay, yeah, you start the season, Dan Moore left tackle, right tackle, Broderick Jones. First 4 games of the year, they're playing great. I mean, you're not going to just throw Fautanu in there. First 6 games, they're playing great. 8 games, whatever you want to put it. There's a chance that one of those guys in the rotation, whether it's Dan Moore and Fautanu, Dan Moore and Broderick Jones, one of those guys might not see a lot of playing time this year. You know what I mean? If Dan Moore holds his own at left tackle the whole year.
Yeah, they're not going to make a change at the first sign of trouble. I mean, Dan Moore got hurt last year against Houston. Jones came in, played well in week 5 against Baltimore. They sat Jones when Moore came back healthy. And listen, Jones probably wouldn't have played much last year if Chuck Okorafor apparently said whatever he said against Jacksonville and got benched in Tomlin's doghouse. So I think Fautanu could be in that situation where he's not playing a lot this year unless injury forces their hand, because they're not going to make a change unless it's really, really bad out there. So you may see Fautanu work in that 6 offensive lineman role, the tackle eligible type of thing for most of the season. If guys are healthy, that may be what happens.
Jerry, to your point though, if they make it 6-8 weeks and they're playing great, I don't give a shit. Like I don't care who's playing football out there. I just want them to play good. My concern is we've seen a few years of Dan Moore Jr. We know, he's just not. We know what he is. We know what he is at this point. You know what I mean? You drafted these guys high early. I would like to see them play. It is what it is.
The only thing with Dan Moore, last thing I'll say about it, it seems like every time he goes up against Myles Garrett, he does really well. And which is weird to me because, like, obviously Myles Garrett, one of the better, defensive linemen in the league, so it's like weird that like he'll lock down a guy like that, and then next week he won't do that well against a player who's not as good, But that's just my take on it. I don't know. We'll see. I would love to see Broderick Jones and Fautanu, but I mean, we'll see what happens.
I will say I'll push back a little bit. I don't think Moore has been that good against Myles Garrett, which is no slight against Moore.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think he's been really good. Myles Garrett doesn't have that many sacks on him.
You're right, he doesn't, but I think Pittsburgh has schemed things up to give Moore a lot of help and get the ball out super quickly. Those, I think, have been more factors of Garrett's invisibility against Pittsburgh more so than Moore's play. I think, go back to Moore's rookie year, he got whooped so bad on a goal line where Najee picked it up last second that saved the probably strip sack fumble. So, I mean, you're right. Garrett has not been productive, but I think that's more emblematic of the scheme than it is more shutting the guy down.
Fair. I go off the stats, so
I don't want to get all PFF on you and talk about win rates. I'm not going to do that because you guys are going to hate me, and I'm not subscribing to all of that either. But
I just know when I watch the game,
sure,
I'm looking at TJ sacks, I'm looking at Myles Garrett sacks. And it seems like TJ always blows them away in that game.
No, you're 100% right about that. Pittsburgh, to their credit, does a great job of scheming away your best defensive guy. Like, they will make sure your defensive guy does not take over the game. Teams have not been able to do that against TJ. That's why I think TJ should get even more credit than he does. Pittsburgh has always done a great job of making sure your best guy does not take over the game defensively.
For sure. Najee and Jalen, let's move on to the running back situation this year. Alex, who do you see having a more productive season? Who has a better year by year's end, assuming that the hamstring doesn't linger as far as Jalen Warren is concerned? Do you think one back is better than the other? Do you think they return Najee ultimately going into next year?
Well, to answer the first question, who's better, it kind of goes back to what you said. Like, I don't care who's better. They're both really good, and they both complement each other super well. And Pittsburgh used to be like workhorse back. We have one guy, 300 carries, L. Bell, Connor, Mendenhall, Parker, and Pittsburgh has joined kind of the new age committee approach, and it's made both guys, I think, better. It's really been able to bring out the best in Najee, bring out the best in Jalen Warren. So I think they're both important. Warren has his upsides. He's more explosive. He's probably better in more game-breaking type plays. Najee is a real grinder. He's got better ball security, those types of things. Yeah. I think the split will be similar to last year where it was probably Najee 60-40. Warren's going to get more receptions. So continue to work as the third down back. Arthur Smith can be a bit unpredictable when it comes to running back rotations, and so game flow may change things. I think he'll be a guy that rides the hot hand a bit more than what's happened in past years. I think Warren will get more goal line and short yardage touches. He's really not had many of those in his 2 years in the NFL, so that may shift and adjust a little bit. But I think they're both really good. They're both going to play, and that's all that really matters. And they're both extremely durable too, which is just unheard of for the position.
Knock on wood.
In terms of who comes back, if Najee comes back, Dave from the site, Dave Bryan, is believes an extension could happen, and it could, but I'm a lot more pessimistic. I think Omar Khan is this new age thinking of analytics, and we're not going to pay running back on a second contract. The history says that it's not generally worked out well. Najee is an older back who's got a lot of carries from Alabama and Pittsburgh. So my expectation is Harris does not return. He's going to play out his final season in Pittsburgh in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much why they didn't, I feel like, pick up that fifth-year option on him.
It was peanuts.
Which I think was such a bad decision. I mean, you can have Warren and Harris under contract for this year and next year, and Patterson too, and be set. And for a run-minded team, that did not make sense to me.
Yeah. And it was so cheap. To me, it was like, it's not like it's an insane...
What was it, $7 million?
It was like 6.8, 6.9.
Super cheap. I thought it was a no-brainer, but...
I mean, do you see... So, all right. So then coming back to that, you think Jalen Warren is in their plans for the future then? If they let Najee walk, which I ultimately agree with you, I think Najee's gone. I think someone will pay Najee more than what the Steelers will want to pay him anyway. If they're not willing to pick up 6'9", I don't see them paying him somewhere around 10, which I think he has the ability to get. especially if it's a big year. And we know in an Arthur Smith system, if it is run heavy and he does have a big year, it's going to be, hopefully we would think that it might be the best, at least offensive line that he's had so far in his career in the NFL. So he has the potential to have a very good season. If that ends up being the case, then you go into next year with just Jaylen Warren and you're back to the drawing board then at a position where you want to be a run-minded team. Is Jaylen Warren then the back of the future?
Yeah, I think so. At least for 2025, he'll be a restricted free agent after 2024. There could be a potential for an extension on that. We'll just have to see. I'm with you. Arthur Smith, in 4 of his 5 years, either as the OC or head coach, his teams have been top 5 in rushing attempts. So Pittsburgh's mantra is run, run, run as much as possible. He's really probably the most run-minded coordinator in football right now. So, yeah, my thought, and who knows how the season will go. Things can change, so much in a year. But Harris gone after this year. Warren either gets tendered or gets an extension, and they draft somebody. And you go back to kind of just draft and replace. And that new school way of thinking of don't pay running back on a second contract, go draft somebody and build up your offensive line so that back becomes less important. It becomes more about the scheme, more about the offensive line, and the backs are able to just take advantage of the talent around them. So that's kind of where I'm thinking right now, the direction this thing goes. But we'll have to wait and see.
Shifting to quarterback now, Russ and Fields. So Jerry obviously has been very high on Russ. A little weird at times with the sussy for Russy. I mean, he's really pushing it to a different level with the Russ.
We got the shirts dropping tomorrow.
I will not be buying one. Just as a heads up. All yours, Jerry.
Do you think they made the right choice going with Russ? And do you think Russ plays out all 17 games barring injury?
I do, yes to both. I mean, I know the national media went crazy, competition every day. This was 2022 all over again. This was Trubisky versus Pickett versus Rudolph, and it was Trubisky's job.
Yep.
And you guys probably understand that and felt that the whole way through. Fields had a good summer. Credit to him. He progressed. It was good to get those extra reps. I think one reason why the team took so long to get Wilson back in camp, they slow play this thing so much, was to allow Fields to get extra work, because you don't know when he might get that long look again over the course of a week or two when Wilson is sidelined. So, Fields is exciting. There's a role for him. He should play. There should be a package for him. I fully expect that to happen. It'll ebb and flow each week based on game circumstance. Sometimes he'll play a lot. Sometimes he'll play a little. I think we'll see some action in this Falcons game. But Wilson is that leader. He's got the intangibles, and he just takes better care of the football. He threw 8 picks last year. He fumbles less than Fields. He takes too many sacks. It has to get cleaned up. No question about that. But Pittsburgh, while their goal is to score more, and they must score more, and they must be more productive, their overall philosophy is the same. Run the ball, play great defense, win 20-17. And to do that, you can't turn the ball over. You can't give teams short fields, reduce your possession, number of possessions, give the opposing team more possessions. That's not the model Pittsburgh wins by. So that makes Wilson the right guy. It's a young offense still overall. Wilson is the veteran. Even things like in training camp, the first time Wilson took a step in the huddle, like just his cadence, the way that how loud his voice was. Like I never had to look up at training camp to know was Fields in or was Wilson in. You could just hear it. And those are small things where defenses will tip their blitz or jump, like what Ben had. And those are advantages that Wilson has over Fields. So, yeah, I mean, I think it would take a lot for Wilson to get benched. I think if Pittsburgh is competitive and if Wilson is competent, and I think both things are likely to happen, they're going to stay the course.
Yeah, I used to, when the season, like training camp started, me and Kevin would talk about it, I was always under the impression there would be a really, really short leash on Russ. And the closer it gets to game day, I'm starting to shift towards maybe it's not going to be a super short leash on him. Maybe they're just going to ride him, man. He's the veteran, obviously Super Bowl winner. He's won some big playoff games. He didn't even have, he got ran out of Denver, and I'm saying to myself, this whole time he's been on the Steelers, he didn't really have a terrible year at Denver. He only had 8 picks. He looked pretty good. His deep ball still looks good. I think mobility, years ago it was a lot better than it is now, but I think he's still pretty good. I mean, the problem I see with the Steelers these last couple of years is they haven't really had a competent quarterback. And they've had the defense to compete at a really high level. You bring in a guy like Russ, who's competent, he's a leader, doesn't turn the ball over, throws a great deep ball. We're going to finally probably see a lot more play action this year. I think he's going to thrive. I really do. And I think that's all the Steelers really need. We don't need a guy that's going to be putting up, Hurts, Allen, Mahomes numbers. Like, we just need a guy who's going to go out there, throw for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, don't turn the ball over, and there you go.
No, you're right. This team, guys, is so starved for just a normal passing game. The last, if you could just copy and paste Wilson's stats last year, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, I'll take that in a heartbeat every day.
Oh, my God, yes.
2 years combined, Pittsburgh has thrown for 25 touchdowns. Wilson, in a decent year, but not a great year, threw 26 last season. So sign me up all day for that. Now, to be clear, what I've said is, dating back to the spring, Wilson's going to start week 1. Where it goes from there, we'll have to see. I don't want to pretend there's a lock on his job where there's no scenario in which he could be benched. There's going to be some time. It took Trubisky until halftime at week 4 to get benched. So Wilson should get at least that much and probably more. Could Fields come in if Wilson is really struggling? It is possible. But if you made me choose, he's going to start all 17 games or not, to answer that question like I did, I will say yes to that.
I agree. I don't think I could not agree more with the idea that initially I'm like, especially two preseason games ago, you watch Fields against the Bills. Russ looked so bad, but the line was so terrible, it was hard to judge him. Okay. So then you see Fields come in, he's better with his legs. He feels more electric, you would think. And in my opinion, after that game, I'm like, well, if the line is going to suck, Fields probably makes more sense to have out there. But then you see Russ come out in that 3rd preseason game, and he makes throws where he looks like an NFL quarterback. I feel like it's been so long as Steelers fans that we've seen an NFL throw that, when I saw it immediately, I'm like, holy shit, that's what it looks like again. That's how the offense is supposed to look. He puts it on a rope, it was functioned like a real NFL offense. So you say the Steelers are starved. As fans, we're starved for a real quarterback play. So that's why, I'm not, as much as Justin Fields has a crazy high ceiling with all the talent and everything that is there, Russ is still more proven and has done it. He's already done it. So, are we catching him on the tail end of his career? Absolutely. But I still think that if he gives us, like you said, 26-8, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be playing into middle to late January if you have that type of quarterback play. So he's the guy. I mean, he's going to be the guy. Short leash, maybe. I would be kind of shocked if it was short leash, if like you said, as long as he's not killing them, as long as he's not turning the ball over, he's going to be the guy.
And not only competent quarterback play, but a competent scheme too. Yeah. I mean, just Arthur Smith, again, kind of refreshing, where I'm not going to pretend like he's Sean McVay or Bill Walsh and doing this crazy stuff out there, but it just felt like what I'll say about this offense is what I can confidently say is they'll be average. And that's not a great thing to hang up on a banner. We'll be average, but I can say they can at least be that, and hopefully more, and maybe they could be, but I'm confident they can at least be average. And in Pittsburgh, I'll take average because I've seen some bad offensive play for 3 years running. This team's been 20-something in points per game. And so give me that and a top 5 defense, which I think Pittsburgh can be. That is a recipe for success. My concern, though, longer term is, okay, 2024, what about 2025? Will Wilson be good enough to warrant a big deal at age 36? That's still, you're not quite sure of. If he goes out there and has a good year, they win a playoff game, then he comes back. If not, are you stuck between, we saw Wilson for 16, 17 games. He was okay, but he's not our future. Fields played a little, but not a lot. Do you pay him? You're in a real awkward spot at that point. You're probably picking 20th overall, can't get a blue chip quarterback in the draft. That's where it gets tricky. So I don't know how it's going to go beyond this year.
Yeah, even if the Steelers either don't make the playoffs or go to the playoffs and lose first round again, Russ won't come back, right?
I mean, it depends on how he plays and what the factors are. But yeah, Jerry, you're in that gray area of you're still in purgatory as a team where you're a decent team. You're in the playoff hunt, but you're one and done. Pittsburgh's not won a playoff game for 7 years. So yeah, we'll have to ask later. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But that's going to be a really tricky line for Pittsburgh to walk if that does occur.
And I also think that, let's say Steelers go to the playoffs. Russ wins one playoff game, let's say. I think Russ would take a team-friendly deal. I think he's at the point in his career where he's had the big contracts, He just wants somewhere to just retire, and still play at a high level and a team that can compete. I think he would take a team-friendly deal.
I just think there's so many variables to that, though. Like, it depends on how he looks this year, how the team performs.
Yeah, for sure.
There are so many things, but before I would see him taking a team-friendly deal. And the other thing that concerns me, are we giving him the right weapons? Like, Alex, are you confident in the wide receiver room?
No, not overall. It's George Pickens and a lot of unknowns. So that is certainly the Ayuk situation was not only disappointing because you don't get Ayuk, but what is the alternative? You have no time left to really find that alternative. So there is certainly a concern there.
Van Jefferson, what are your thoughts on that? Like, obviously, you saw him at camp a lot, and we've talked to some of the guys, and they think Van Jefferson is getting not the respect that he deserves. A little bit underrated, is what we're hearing, that he has great hands. He's got good legs. He's a good route runner. He's a pretty decent wide receiver. Would you say that, because obviously if it's going to be George Pickens and teams are going to double the shit out of him, it's going to have to be somebody else. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Van Jefferson? Is it going to be rookie Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, who, I'm not even sure what ultimately he's going to end up being at this point going into year 3. So, who's it going to be for you?
Jefferson had a good camp. I was impressed and surprised pleasantly by his camp. His hands were great. His work ethic was fantastic. He's versatile. He looked more athletic than what I saw in Atlanta last year. But I know that training camp, what you do in Latrobe, does not always translate exactly to how it's going to go in the regular season. And him as a number 2, if he can capture that 2021 magic, fantastic. But I'm very skeptical of that. He's really better as a number 3 type. And so I think Pittsburgh will be hurting. You talk about who is most valuable to this team. Pittsburgh is so weird because for like 29 other franchises, the quarterback is the most valuable guy. He might not even be on the podium in Pittsburgh. It's TJ Watt. And man, if you lost George Pickens, not even for the season, but for a month, like Deontay in week 1 last year, where does your pass game go? You are really struggling vertically. Teams will stack the box. Yeah, you have Pat Freiermuth, and he's really the de facto number 2 receiver on this team. Freiermuth is. But, man, there is so much riding on Pickens to be that guy. And as you said, to get open, because every defense will be trying to take him away. So that becomes even more important for Arthur Smith to scheme him up and scheme him open, which I'm more confident that he can do than Matt Canada is able to do. I was able to do, but it's going to be a chess match the entire year. So, Wilson, hopefully he's barely played this summer. He got hurt in the first pad of practice, missed so much time that he's got to get on that moving train. That's going to hurt his development. But yeah, big time questions. I think you'll hear more receiver trade rumors as the season goes along. Somebody becomes available, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Adams, whoever the case is. I think if Pittsburgh is competitive, they got some cap space, they could make a move.
So you believe that that's still a possibility that they trade for wide receiver yet?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, not out of the gate, obviously, but as you get close to the deadline, which has been pushed back 1 year because of a rule proposal that Pittsburgh made, so it's the Tuesday after week 9. I mean, if you're competitive, if you're Pittsburgh, you're trying to make a push for this thing with that tough back end of the schedule coming up, I think you certainly explore it. My whole mantra's been you keep looking for a receiver until you're not allowed to look for a receiver anymore, which will be the deadline. So keep looking.
That's your biggest worry on offense is the wide receiver room?
I mean, the O-line health is making me nervous some just out of the gate and how that group comes together, because that is the lifeblood. If your O-line's not working well, I don't care how well the receivers are doing or not doing. But yeah, my analogy's been, because I know in Arthur Smith's system, you don't always need a true number 2 receiver. They didn't have that in Atlanta, and this offense is built around the ground game. But is it that missing puzzle piece where you just feel one short? Maybe not the piece in the middle where you see it immediately and all the time, but that piece on the edge where you feel like, yeah, you're pretty close, but you're just not fully complete of this picture of this offense. And that could be kind of an anchor that pulls this team down.
I couldn't agree more. Let's shift to let's do predictions. Who would be, Alex, I'll go you, and then Jerry, you can go. Who's going to be your offensive MVP for 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers?
Man, that's a great question. I'll say George Pickens. I'm still excited about him. In year 3, he has grown a lot as a receiver. I know there's still questions over maturity. And listen, there's going to be some George Pickens story where you guys are going to come on and talk about, did you believe what George Pickens did, or this headline, or this Instagram thing? And don't even get me started on next year when you got to pay the guy and he's going to pull the whole Ayuk thing 2.0. Like, I'm already dreading that right now. But this guy's become a more well-rounded receiver. His yak, no one talks about how much better he is after the catch. He was a terrible yak receiver as a rookie. He was a top 10 guy last year. He's grown in big ways this year. He's become more versatile. He's working out of the slot more, and he could have a really big season because I think Arthur Smith will help scheme him open. So Obviously, the backs are going to be, the horses of this team, but I'll go Pickens for MVP on the offense.
Jerry, who you got? Offensive MVP.
I got Russ. I got Russie, man. I just think he's going to fit really well in this offense, this Arthur Smith offense. I do. I think he's going to have a good running game. I think play action, which he's really good at, he's going to excel at this year. So I'm going to go Russ, man. I'm not going to say the guy's going to come out there and throw 35 touchdowns, 10 picks, 5 picks, whatever the case may be. But I mean, I'd kill for that. But listen, if he can go out there and just play good football, I mean, he's going to lead his team to a playoff win, 100%. 100%.
For me, it's Freiermuth. I just think in an Arthur Smith system, Pat Freiermuth, because I think teams will try to scheme George Pickens out of the game. Like, that's your only real threat of getting killed is going to be George Pickens if you look at the Steelers offense when they line up the way it stands right now. And so for me, a guy like Freiermuth, especially for Russell Wilson and play action reasons, I think Muth can just have a massive year. And I assume he's going to get paid before week 1. I mean, I'm just guessing, but I would guess that they end up working out a deal for him to extend him. You would think that he being option 2 is going to he'll at least have all the chances to have an incredibly breakout year, in my opinion, as far as Freiermuth is concerned.
And he should stand up more. I think one thing under Arthur Smith I've observed throughout training camp and the preseason is him standing up as a quasi wide receiver. That was 40% of the time in the preseason. That's more than it's happened in the last 3 regular seasons. Pittsburgh did that with him in previous years. It's not brand new, but you're going to see more of it. And so he's not going to be a true receiver, but with that tight end heavy system that Arthur Smith runs, you're going to have Darnell Washington be that true inline wide tight end, the blocking type. That's his forte, not really Freiermuth's forte. And that'll allow more flexibility to move a guy like Freiermuth all around the formation.
Let's go to defense. Who you taking defensive MVP?
You can't pick TJ Watt.
Yeah, I mean, throw a dart and you can give a good name. I'll go Minkah. I'm expecting a big bounce back year from Minkah Fitzpatrick. Last year was the first year he didn't record a pick in the NFL or college. I assume in high school or maybe Pee Wee football was the last time he didn't do it. So he's probably hungry for some interceptions. And with the strength of that front seven, the pressure they're going to get, the run defense they can play to put teams in 3rd and long, I think Minkah's going to have a big bounce back season. He's a great tackler. That gets overshadowed because of the playmaking. But if they can be able to make sure that he can rotate, not be in the box as much as last year, which I think they're going to make much more of an effort to make sure he's playing in center field and robber and not stuck at the line of scrimmage, which he can do, but it's not where he thrives best. It's easy to go Watt or whoever, but I'll go Minkah.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'll go with the rookie. I'll go Peyton Wilson. I feel like he's going to get some snaps, man. I do. I feel like what he's going to bring to that defense this year, listen, couple years now we've dealt with some linebacker injuries and it sucks, but I feel like he's a guy who you can rely on to come in and make some big plays. I mean, he's super fast, athletic, obviously pretty raw, has gotten injured a lot, but I always go back to that one play. I forget who recorded it and posted it on Twitter where it was either like a play action or something like that. I forget who was the quarterback. The gap he closed was one of the fastest I have ever seen.
That was in training camp. That was like day one.
Yeah, and it was obviously camp, but still, just how fast he was. I never seen a linebacker that fast, that close out that fast.
Alex, you might remember it. He rolled out to the right side, and you just see this was like day 1. This might have been the first day of camp. He rolls out to the right side, and Peyton Wilson shot out of a cannon. It was Justin Fields
on the boot. Yeah,
it was Fields, and I mean he just stones him immediately. Has to throw the ball away, etc. That guy has playmaking speed, Jerry.
Oh yeah, he does, and I think he's going to be excellent on special teams. And I think even if let's say a Landon Roberts or Queen, knock on wood, doesn't get hurt, I still think he's going to get some decent playing time this year, and I think he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was saying his time speed and his play speed match. Like some guys run fast, they don't play fast when they put the pads on. Like he is 1 for 1. He's a true low 4 force kind of guy. You saw that in college, in camp, and I mean his work ethic. Like first guy on the field every single day of practice, and his maturity. He probably works in nickel packages. I think Roberts and Queen will be in base.
Yep.
Wilson and Queen and nickel, and then Queen and dime, and we'll go from there. But we'll certainly get some playing time.
For me, it's Patrick Queen, and it's because I want it to be Patrick Queen, but also because I think Patrick Queen can have a great season. How many years have we been missing that linebacker? A true 100%. So you're talking 7 years, 6 years now since Shazier went down, somewhere in that ballpark. So, and for a Steelers defense, the way that they play defense, that linebacker role is crucial. It is crucial for the way that they play defense. And so to not have it for as many years, you could see we just get gashed up the middle. If the defensive line loses gap integrity at all, we had no linebackers to help at all. They would get washed. Devin Bush would get washed. He couldn't figure out how to get around a block. I think Patrick Queen, especially because he's coming in with that chip on his shoulder of, oh, this guy can't play outside of playing beside Roquan Smith, and he played great for the Ravens last year. I think if anybody can hold the defense together this year, it will be a guy like Patrick Queen. I couldn't be more excited to see legitimate linebacker play. So to Landon Roberts, great, yes. Peyton Wilson, great, yes. But Patrick Queen is going to be the guy you see play. He won't come off the field, in my opinion. You see him coming off the field, Alex?
No, he's the every down guy. And he had such a good camp, and Wilson got the buzz, and understandably so. I think Wilson has to work on his run defense some, but excited about his future. But Queen, against any screen, any RPO, anything in the flat, first guy there, and just repeatedly. And the tone that he and Robert set, they were poking the hornet's nest every day. I don't know if you guys probably saw the backs on backers of the Friday Night Lights. That is those guys setting the tone, and you love that chip on their shoulder. And just to have an every down guy where you trust all situations, not, okay, who's our first down guy, and who's our third down guy, and who's green dot calling on this situation, that situation. Just to have some consistency there where it's a known guy is really big. So Pittsburgh, they had a good 3-man rotation last year of Holcomb, Alexander, and Roberts before everyone got hurt. I think they can have an even better 3-man rotation this year of Queen, Roberts, and Wilson. Obviously, Queen won't get rotated, but the big three, I think, can really work well for Pittsburgh.
What's his timeline to come back, Holcomb?
I don't know. He's on reserve PUP. He's out the first 4 games. I didn't see him once at training camp. That was obviously a devastating knee injury. We never even found out exactly the specifics of the knee injury. Mm-hmm. He may not come back at all this year, and he's got a roster bonus due next March. He may have played his last down. I hope that's not the case. But even if he does come back, what's his role going to be? If everyone's healthy, I don't know how he fits in. So just stay tuned on that one.
Is there a dark horse, Alex? A dark horse that nobody's talking about enough on this team? Somebody you see could sneak up and be a great player that we just can't see right now?
I don't know if there's that one true dark horse name. I'm just trying to think through the Rolodex of options right now. I think what Darnell Washington can do as a blocker can be really impactful. I thought his run blocking improved a lot this year. I think he got a little overhyped last year, even by draft nicks. He was just super athletic, day one ready kind of guy. He was pretty raw. And tight ends take a transition period from their rookie year to their sophomore year to really learn the game. Even him coming from a pro style system, his snap timing was not good last year. He was too slow off the football. His base blocking wasn't good. He could down block and wash because he's so big and long and strong. But I think his run blocking this year has improved. And again, he'll be that inline wide tight end. Will he catch a bunch of passes? I think the receiving game is going to be pretty minimal, more than last year, but not a whole lot more. Maybe some red zone targets, some touchdowns. Arthur Smith spreads the love inside the 20. Dude's going to catch 15, 20 passes. They did not throw to him in training camp or the preseason. So his role is to block, but that can be really effective in what Pittsburgh needs.
What are your thoughts on Cam Sutton? I didn't want to see Cam Sutton go when he went, and then he deals with everything off the field. And obviously it's, what's said is terrible, However, on the field play, I think Cam Sutton is going to be such a nice boost to that secondary when they get him, especially for the home stretch of this schedule, which is brutal. The back half, the last 9 are just a gauntlet. To get a guy like Cam Sutton, who's familiar with the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers play defense, I think can be such a shot in the arm. That would be the one guy that I think everyone's so down on the secondary, and we need another cornerback. I don't think Dante Jackson is that bad. I think Corey Trice can be decent. I think that's how the Steelers are looking at it. They think that maybe Corey Trice can be decent, but ultimately getting Cam Sutton back for those last 9 games, I think can be huge for that defense.
Yeah, I think it can be big. I think the core four of your starters of Porter and Jackson and Deshaun Elliott and Minka is strong, but this is not 1975 anymore. You got to be 5 deep. You got to have a nickel out there. You got to have good depth when guys get hurt in today's passing game. So I do have concerns there. But what I think Sutton can really help is in those third down situations when you want someone who can wear a lot of hats. He can play slot corner. He can rotate and play safety. That's going to really unlock Minka Fitzpatrick. Some of their post-snap rotations they do where pre-snap Minka might be looking like he's going to play deep half, and he rotates down to the middle of the field on the snap. You need someone to move with him and play that deep half, for example. Don't really have a guy right now who can do that at a high level. Beanie Bishop, probably not going to be that guy. Maybe they do some 3 safety stuff with Deshaun Elliott, DeMonte Casey. Trice can work in dime packages, but he's not going to do some of those rotation type things. Sutton certainly can. He's done that throughout his Pittsburgh career. So that can be really valuable. So I think that's where he's going to come into play the most is in some of those third down sub packages where he can be a chess piece and really allow other guys to move around as well.
Yep.
How often would you say you would see, because, I mean, when we were obviously, friendly with Kenny and whatnot, and I remember Kenny telling us last year, like during camp, talking about Corey Trice, he was like, dude, everybody's talking about Joey Porter, obviously the media and whatnot, but dude, Trice is the real deal. Like he's big, he's strong, athletic, and then you've seen him in preseason, and he was pretty damn good. And you hear about him in camp, and it's like, oh shit, this guy's pretty good. Obviously coming off the injury and whatnot, but really solid. How often would you say you would see him on the field? Like, because I don't
this
like,
year?
huh?
This year,
This year. You would say not much.
Well, I think he can play in dime packages. I think it's at 6 DB. That's what he was being used in training camp and a little bit in the preseason. So there's a role for that because I think ideally what he could be, and this is ideal, is like that tight end. Maybe I don't want to say eraser, but that tight end matchup guy when you're facing a Mark Andrews late in the season and need someone who can take him away. Like Andrews is too fast for linebackers. Safety's generally too small to cover him. Trice could be that guy. He was a safety at Purdue for half of his career. There's a background about taking on tight ends. So I think that's what he could be. I mean, he had a nice camp. I mean, they were really careful with him early in the summer. He barely got any reps. I was getting concerned, like this guy just is not getting the time to prove himself. They did ramp up his reps. His run defense looked good. His tackling looked good. He's big. He's strong. He's physical. He didn't get tested a lot in coverage. Maybe his coverage was just awesome, and they just didn't throw his way. But I want to see some more in coverage in terms of defending the vertical ball and just the post route, the corner route. There just weren't many opportunities in training camp or the preseason. So the jury is still kind of out on what he can be for this team.
Alex, are the Steelers beating the Atlanta Falcons come Sunday?
I have not made my official prediction. I'm going through some Falcons defensive tape right now. I'll do that for the Friday show, the Terrible Podcast that Dave and I do. If I had to lean right now, and I'm going to try to stay consistent for my answer on Friday too, I mean, this game has scared me for a while since it came up in May when the schedule got released. I know everyone talks about how tough the back half of the schedule is, and it is tough. But this front half is not easy either. At Atlanta week 1, at Denver week 2, hosting the Chargers, playing the Colts, the Cowboys. That is not an easy. To me, there's just easier in the hard part of the schedule. It's not easy versus a hard part of the schedule. And then Atlanta gets Judon and Justin Simmons. It's a new coaching staff and trying to deal with that week 1. It'll be a close game, as all Steelers games are essentially. And the one thing you can give Tomlin credit for, that even if you hate Mike Tomlin, and you guys don't, but the fan base in general, they win close games more than any other team in football. And that is a literal fact. They win 61% of their close games. They're one-score games. That's higher than any other team in the NFL. So I will give the edge to Pittsburgh, but this is going to be a nail-biter.
I think the Falcons' D-line is really good. I think the O-line is – I think you're going to see it the first game of the year. They're going to get tested. The first game of the year, they're going to get tested, and we're going to really see what this O-line is about because, dude, Grady Jarrett is a monster. So you're going to see it. So I don't know, man. It's going to be – I'm back and forth on it. I think I want to say we're going to win, but – It's just such a. I feel like this is such a toss-up game because, it's your team, the Steelers, but it's week 1. You just don't really know yet. So I don't know. I would lean win though.
They're winning, boys. The fuck are we talking about here, man? Come on. Have a little faith. Kirk Cousins coming off injury. First game, new system. You said it all. Yeah, they get Justin Simmons. He just gets thrown in there. Is he damn good? He's damn good, yes. But he's still just getting thrown in there. Judon. We're talking about... I think that this... You say all these things about Russ. He's going to have a great season, etc. If we get competent offensive play out of Russ, they win on Sunday, because the run game I think is going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. This Pittsburgh Steelers team wins by 7 points on Sunday. I'm not even.
Oh my God!
I'm not even. Yeah, I'm not even worried about it, to be honest. I'm not. I'll put $1,000 on it. They're going to win by 7. Over under for Vegas has them at 8.5 wins. Are they over 8.5, Alex? Or are they under 8.5 wins?
I look at those lines every year because they're always like 8 or 8.5. I'm like, how is Vegas not adjusting? They got to be getting killed, because every year they put the same line, and every year Pittsburgh goes over. I mean, how do you take the under at 8.5? I know Tomlin's had a couple 8-win seasons, but in this 17-game format, it's hard not to go the over. Like, Jurassic Park, life finds a way. The Steelers find a way to win at least 9-10 games. And I'm not here to celebrate the whole never had a losing season stat. I kind of hate that stat, to be honest with you guys.
Same.
I can appreciate it, but that is not what Pittsburgh's all about. But the reality is they always win 9-10 games under Mike Tomlin with a better offense, with good health. I mean, they won 10 games last year, and you go look back and wonder, how did they win 10 games last year? Not just offensively, but defensively, losing all their linebackers, all their safeties, losing Cam for half the season. Yep. They were still the 6th best scoring defense. So with everything they're getting back and everything they've added, you got to go at least 9 games for this team. The one concern, a very small, nerdy Alex moment here, though, is punt coverage. You lose Miles Boykin, James Pierre. I love Cameron Johnson. He's booming the heck out of the football. But do you have the guys who can cover that? And the preseason has given me a lot of concern about going down there and covering those punts. And so I'm worried about that. But overall, give me at least 9 wins.
I mean, maybe he just kicks it out of bounds. He's a damn good punter. Maybe he just kicks it out of bounds. That'd be great for everybody if he just pins it out. And honestly, I don't even see us punting a lot this year, so we're going to find out about that too. So.
It's a lot better than that fucking Burger King eating fuck Presley Harvin.
Oh, poor Presley.
Yeah, terrible, terrible. Are they making the playoffs?
Again, I should have come more prepared with some good, solid predictions for you guys. I hate to waver like this. I know the AFC North, it's such a crazy schedule to play all 6-year games the final 8 weeks, but Pittsburgh is as good against the North as any team is against the North. They have not had a losing season against the North in division since 2009. It's the only time it's happened in the last 20 years. They were 5-2 last year. And so that does not scare me as much as other people, because they have figured out Baltimore and Lamar better than any other team. They can beat Cleveland. They can hang with Cincinnati. So I think they can, make it through that tough part of the schedule. It's always close, always a week 18 type of thing. I'll lean towards yes, wild card. This team to me is good enough to get into the wild card round and finally win a playoff game and at least get that monkey off their back. That's what the expectation should be. And so I will expect it from them this year. So I'll say yes.
Jerry Don, playoffs?
Yeah, I think they go to the playoffs. Honestly, I think they're 1 or 2 in the division. I think it's either the Ravens or them winning the division this year. Burrow, listen, part of my take did the interview with Joe Burrow. I was there. He was playing with his hand a lot, stretching that hand out. I watched it. I was there. I seen the interview. Listen, he's a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But, they've had a lot of drama this offseason. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, lost a bit on defense. Is the line really that good? I don't think so. You lose Joe Mixon. So, I don't know. I think they're going to take a step back this year. Deshaun Watson, I think his career is over. I really do. And I'm trying not to be biased as a Steelers fan, but I just don't think he has it anymore. I really don't. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have such a bad year that he might not be on the Browns roster next year. I really do. I really do.
Owe
People
too much money. It's too much. They're not eating $70 million in dead cap.
Hey, you just watch Denver eat all that money. I mean, some teams just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about
how
that.
Can you play? How can you have a guy on your roster who is going to go into another year now where Joe Flacco comes off the couch and plays the way he does, and you can't. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
no, I get it.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think he sucks. I really do.
If you don't get good return on him this year, and this might sound hyperbolic, but like that could be the worst trade in NFL history to give up all they gave up, and then all the allegations, the PR hit that you took, and then get like nothing out of that guy who's been hurt and ineffective. That is legitimately, if this year does not go well, going to be maybe the worst trade ever.
God, I hope that's what happens too. It would just be so Cleveland.
I think it's gonna happen.
I would sleep like such a baby if that ends up happening. Jerry,
I got one more question for Alex.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alex, how close do you think the Steelers were to getting Ayuk?
I mean, listen, this thing went back and forth so much. I'm not gonna. There's no dog avatar on my Twitter profile. I'm not gonna try to weigh in and like have a source or something. I think it got close, but I think the issue was, and the reporting across the board indicates that the Niners, they needed a receiver back from somebody for this thing to get across the finish line and a trade to be completed. And Pittsburgh had no one to offer, and that's why San Francisco reportedly went to Denver about Cortland Sutton. You do wonder, I think back, in hindsight's 2020, I'm not critiquing the Steelers for this, but if you didn't trade Deontay Johnson to Carolina, if you kept Deontay, I'll bet that grand that Kevin mentioned earlier about that trade goes down. Deontay a second for Brandon Ayuk had you kept him.
Yeah,
I agree. Jerry, let's get to the betting. So, Alex, if you're not familiar, Jerry, Don, and I have a one bet a week challenge. And at the end of the season, whoever has more head-to-head won bets, the other person has to buy them front row seats to a road game. Season 1 of the Steel Here podcast, I beat Jerry, and he owes me front row seats, which we've still not gotten, and we're gonna get those this year. So Jerry owes me those. Last year we ended a dead tie. Well, you know, we even went to the Bills playoff game. Went to a dead nuts tie. So this year, we are looking at the normal money line is Steelers plus 150. So Vegas has the Steelers as dogs. Falcons minus 175. So, Vegas obviously thinks the Falcons have a pretty high chance of beating the Steelers. The over-under is 42.5 points. Falcons are minus 3.5, which is even money, or the Steelers are plus 3.5 at minus 120. If you were taking any bet, Alex, what would you bet? The gun to your head, you have to get this one right. What are you betting on this Steelers game?
Of those options that you just laid out?
You can pick any bet if you want.
Anything. You can pick props if you want.
You can pick a touchdown score, anything you want.
Full disclaimer, I don't bet. Respect to you guys. You have the heart that I don't have, the stress that you guys can take. Like, sports to me is stressful enough that I can't add more on top of that. What was the line? 3.5?
3.5. Steelers are getting 3.5 minus 120.
Yeah, again, do not take my advice at all, but I think I would go with that. I think it will be a close game, but it could be a 4-point game, so I'll take that line.
Jerry Don, what's your bet?
My bet is Najee Harris, 50-plus rushing yards at minus 130.
So you're taking over 50 rushing yards, Najee Harris.
Yep.
Oh, I like that. That's a good bet, actually. I didn't look at any of the props. You know why I didn't look at the props? Because the over-under at 42.5, it's going to be over. I think Vegas is...
Over?
Yes. I'm Steelers 27-20. Like, gun to my head, that's what I think it's going to be, 27-20.
I hope we can score that much.
If we score that much, boys, I'm going to be in Atlanta. I won't have a voice. We record this episode after Sunday's game. I won't have a single voice. I do, though.
How was the crowd looking? I mean, because last time they were there in Atlanta, it was a Steelers game. I mean, I imagine you're probably expecting the same, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, we've already sold, pushing 300 tickets to the terrible tailgate. Wow. So, and that's on, we're recording Tuesday night. So I would imagine we might get close to 500 people at the terrible tailgate. So that's a lot of Steelers fans just that are going to the tailgate. So that tells me there's a whole swath of Steelers fans that are going to be there. I would imagine it's a pretty good turnout. Ticket prices are fairly expensive. I mean, you're looking at spending $500-$600 to sit in the lower ring, which is a bit pricey. But I'd imagine there's a lot of Steelers fans in the South, especially that first game of the season. Vibes are immaculate. I bet you it's a great turnout. When I was there 2 years ago, it was a home game. Like, that is when when Minka picks that ball at the end of the game, it erupted as loud as it would have been at Heinz Field. Like, that's how it felt. And so I would expect a great turnout as far as that's concerned. Jerry.
I've always wanted to go there because I heard the food was so cheap.
Oh, it's dirt cheap. A soda's like $1.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
The concessions there are phenomenal. I guess their owner, what is his name? Arthur Blank.
Arthur Blank, yeah.
Yeah, he has said he made it a point. They pay enough money to come to these games. We don't have to rob them at the concessions. I wish they would do that at Heinz
I love
Field.
that.
Yeah, so do I. Jerry, anything else you want to add on this episode?
No, Alex, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like, every time we talk, it's great. We always have great conversations about the Steelers. So, hey, thank you so much for coming on. Love following you. I always got your notifications on during the season. So, yeah, best of luck this year and what you're doing. And, great episode, guys. I loved it.
Alex, let the people know where they can find you, what you do, what, the podcast that you run.
Yeah, sure. It's Twitter handle at Alex_Kozora, Kozora. The site SteelersDepot.com. The podcast that Dave Bryan and I do. The Terrible Podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Little mini-sodes each day. The Terrible Take drops at 5 p.m. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Keep killing it as always. And hopefully some good news happens on Sunday.
Absolutely, boys. Appreciate you, Alex. Thank you.
We're here. We're still here.
We are still here.